Ever wonder why artists create their art? In this series, Crafting a Career in the Arts, The Art of Why, you will hear from Edmonton-based artists from a wide range of disciplines. These artists will share with you why they create, how they use their art form to maintain their mental health, help with a disability, or as a way to connect with their community. We will also feature some of Edmonton's locations and organizations that support the arts in our city. In this episode, light-based artist Dylan takes us on a journey through his enchanting work as an event installation artist, his varied artistic career, and why he loves to create his pieces.
My name is Dylan Toymaker, and I live in Edmonton, Alberta. Well, I was born in Trail, BC. I moved to St. Albert with my family when I was pretty young, like 4, I think. I've definitely wanted to be something creative all my life, and it turned out that ended up happening. Yeah, when I was a kid, I definitely spent a lot of time drawing. My mom was an art teacher earlier in her life, and so we were always doing something creative. I took piano and guitar lessons, and I feel like I wanted to be an architect when I was growing up. That seemed like the most cool thing to do, I guess. Maybe people that built Lego wanted to be architects a lot. I consider myself a light-based artist, which is to say that a lot of the effect and impact is based on some manipulation of light and shadow. I'll do this with a number of different light sources. Some of them I build, some of them I find. I spend a lot of time being nerdy about LEDs and things to make LEDs go, so that's a big piece. And then on the other side of it, I use a lot of wood, a lot of metal, a lot of recycled materials. Yeah, so earlier in my career, I identified as a recycled materials artist. I like to use materials that are easy to have a healthy end-of-life plan on them. So if I'm making an aluminum sculpture, then it's all aluminum, and that's easy to scrap out afterwards. If I'm making it out of wood, then the wood will biodegrade over time, and in fact I get to watch that happen in real life over the last 10 years of doing this work. And when I'm working on a project that's connected to a land or an organization or some other kind of system, then I'll try and use materials from that place in my art. Like for Flying Canoe, I've used a lot of canoes and snowshoes. And then for some other festivals on a farm, I used old trucks in the field. I do use some plastics. It's kind of unavoidable, but I try and use them in a way that they can be separated out afterwards again into their, individual pieces. There's certainly some mediums that I would love to do more of, but it's hard to justify, like putting a lot of epoxy, mixing in with wood, and then cutting that up. That's bonded in a way that you can't really recycle the thing separately anymore. The things that inspired me to start using lights, I guess in a sense this is the story of my inspiration generally, is one thing leads to another. And that thing that led to this was working with recycled computer parts. That was sort of my first public presentation art form. I'd make jewelry and small-scale sculpture out of recycled materials, computer parts, electrical parts. And in those things that I was recycling 20, 25 years ago, there was LEDs often. It'd be small little blinky things. We still use those indicators nowadays, but that's all that was an LED at the time. And the plus side of that is that it's really easy to make those lights work. You just need a 3 volts from one lithium battery or from 2 alkaline batteries, and you can make any LED that you've taken out of anything else to light up. And that became really fun. I'd make little monsters with glowing eyes, I'd make light up crystals, and over the years, lights just got brighter and brighter. There's new inventions and just innovations in LEDs kept happening. I was go to the electronics store and be looking at stuff, and now all of a sudden there's blue LEDs. This was a huge deal. Some guys got a Nobel Prize for it. It was an enormous deal. It changed everything. And then the 1 watt LEDs versus the tiny little ones. That was enormous. And it's still nothing compared to what we've got nowadays, but it was huge 15 years ago. So that increased capacity just led to new possibilities. I started making more glowing pieces, lamps, and other fun light stuff. That became sort of like another third of the pieces that I had at my craft show universe. And then one of the places that I would show work at was festivals. So folk festivals, electronic music festivals, public festivals. And some of those outdoor events were far away from city lights and had a lot of dark spaces. I had all these little blinky lights technology and started to put things together that could hang in the trees for people. And that became kind of a fun thing to do. I was doing bigger installations. I feel like around then I was starting to go to events where people were doing more fancy event decoration as well, and putting that kind of stuff together, like space arrangement art, decoration, installation art, and lighting. That became a bigger and bigger thing. And the stuff that I was doing could go anywhere because it ran on tiny batteries. It didn't need hundreds of kilometers of extension cords to light up a festival. I could, hack 30 of these solar lanterns and make a new body of them and turn them into something more interesting. So I would do that, and then that would be another piece that I'd bring to a festival. The point about when my kid was born, I sort of looking at all the things that I was doing, and it seemed like an awful lot of different things. I was doing jewelry, I was doing sculpture, I was doing installation, I was doing lighting, I was playing music, I was involved in dance. And I decided that the thing that seemed to be building, and the thing that I was actually most interested in, and the thing that other people seemed most interested in, was the event installation lighting and lighting generally. So kind of decided to focus on that from then on. So you can find my work in a few permanent public installations. I've got a piece on the front of the St. Albert's Art Gallery, and I've got a metal piece in Ivor Dent Park in the south side of Edmonton. I've worked on a number of festivals around the city, including Deep Freeze and Edmonton Folk Fest. And I've done some longer pieces set up in Jasper National Park. And then I do events for some out-of-town festivals as well. Yeah, major highlights is a hard one. Probably the big one is Flying Canoe Volant. It's the most amount of work that I put out in a single time in a place. Flying Canoe Volant is a outdoor winter festival in Mill Creek Ravine and La Cité Francophone that centers the stories of the French, Métis, and First Nations people of Canada. The organization that I was working with previously, Winterlight, had been doing a Mill Creek Adventure Walk for the last few years, and we planned on partnering with La Cité Francophone to do the next version. Turned out that due to factors, Winterlight couldn't continue on and ended that year, but Daniel from La Cité Francophone was still really keen on doing an event in the ravine that year. So he contacted all of the crew leads from Winterlight, and we put on the first Flying Canoe Volant that year. How many hours do I spend on a flying canoe? All of them. I spend all the hours. Yeah, I do get asked about the meanings or the stories behind my art, and it's kind of a tough answer. I think I kind of go with Marshall McLuhan a lot on this one, like the medium is the message. It's kind of about the vibe, the space that you get into when you've moved into a alternate universe, and I try to create this alternative universe of beautiful sparkling lights that people can walk into and bring their friends and hang out in. There are specific things, specific pieces that do have message and do have a story, and sometimes that's based on the project I'm working on, like with Flying Canoe Volant. There's a big story for Flying Canoe Volant, and I use several canoes in Flying Canoe and make them light up or turn them into airships. So some of the challenges I have with larger scale public art is like logistics becomes a real challenging thing, like getting enough of the material to the right places to create all of the things, being organized enough to deliver all of those things, and show people how to put them up, because I put up, I think the count was like 200 different things inside of 45 different installations, which is honestly just, those are kind of just numbers because there's not really a way to differentiate exactly what a thing is in a number, but it's still a lot of stuff to deal with, and it takes a team. It takes a team, and I'm not necessarily naturally a team player, but turns out doing this much stuff, it's better to do with people, and that's fun too. So learning how to manage people has been a huge challenge. The specifics of outdoor public art means dealing with all kinds of environmental factors, which maybe I haven't had to deal with in other kinds of art. So it's got to be wind safe, it's got to be cold safe, the cables have to not break when it gets to -30. Stuff that I build has got to have a sticker on it so that the city electricians don't shut down the festival. The ifs, if there's a way for people to climb it, it has to be safe for people to climb. Mostly you shouldn't make it climbable because there's liability. So what you're allowed to do inside of all these different parameters, like you got to keep track of all of those different things. And then it still has to be good art at the end of the day too. It's hard to say what my most difficult or challenging installation was. In a sense, I think it's like the last one or the last new one. So there's things that I'll do that are really tough, but I've done it 100 times now. So I've developed techniques and contingencies and built the thing so that it works with those challenges, and it's not a problem anymore. But the brand new thing is easy to design that on paper and budget the stuff. It's not even actually that easy to design it on paper and budget it out and get all the materials. But after you've done that, then actually building that thing and then building in a way that's actually going to work out, that's a whole different thing. And so, learning that the design plan that you'd had was not actually going to work with the way things fit together in an actual order in real life, that's always a fun thing. Sitting here, I'm recalling this archway that I built for the Red Deer Canada Winter Games in, I believe it was 2017. So the archway is made up of 3 big pieces, and they're each about 14 feet tall, and each of those pieces barely fits in the elevator to get out of there. So it's this 500-pound object that takes 4 or 5 people to move, and then you have to delicately balance it inside of the freight elevator and twist it over as you go up towards the top so that it just clears. If I'd built it 3 inches bigger, it wouldn't have made it out of this place at all without coming apart. So maybe that's a standout one, and I guess I dealt with that with a lot. Being connected to a community is really important for an artist. It's really grounding in a lot of ways. I've spent a lot of time in my little art cave doing my own thing and getting lost in stuff that I thought was fun, but being invested in a community helps to, to be a little bit more relevant, and also that's the thing that actually keeps me social, I guess, because the community is sort of the people that are going to like keep you moving, both in inspiration and also just getting you work. I've been lucky enough to get involved in a number of different communities. Some of those have been ones that I have found through just my own interest of different dance communities or festival communities that I've been a part of, and some of them have been ones that have hired me to get involved with their work, and then I've become invested with them over the years. Who's it for is definitely a good question with art. Like, there's art that I do a little more for myself, and there's art that I'll do particularly for other people. And some of that comes down to where I'm at overall. I spent a lot of time doing a bunch of things for Flying Canoe, and there's a lot of history for things that just need to be done, and that can become a little bit more, administrative, I guess. And then there's a piece that was sort of a fun project collaborating with another artist, Gabs. We made a canoe airship, steampunk airship, and she made the glowing soft sculpture animals, and I made the airship part of it. And that got to be a thing that I would stay later after everyone else had gone home and just do something for fun and explore a new thing and work on it. I really enjoy those sort of exploration of new processes and learning a new thing or finding a new material or a new style and exploring how that can work with everything else. That kind of creative exploration is maybe the most artistically feeding part for me. So when I get to explore those new things, that's what I like. And that's also the part that I might not pitch for a client immediately because I haven't worked out the details yet. So the stuff that I've done a few times, that's a lot safer to do for other people. And then the stuff that's brand new in exploration and I don't necessarily even know where it's going to go, that's kind of one of the big parts for me. So my style changed over time. I feel like there's definitely an element that it's still the same vibe in a way, the sort of that playful engagement with the world. The specific things that I'm engaged with have changed, and that makes a definite material difference. My skills and refinement have changed over the time, and that makes a difference. Yeah, a lot of it is that just refinement, I would say. Yeah, so my favorite part of being an artist that gets to do large-scale public art, I think it is that being able to address a large space and being able to see people enjoyment. That's definitely a big part of what keeps me going. I like it when a project is big enough that I can really focus on it and really get into a thing. Sometimes that happens more than others. Sometimes I'm doing lots of little different projects, and that's a little harder for me to feel comfortable doing. But when there's something that's big enough that I can really focus on it, get into the flow, spend time doing the design and doing the exploration, like that's enjoyable. A big part of my work is that shared experience. So to be able to see thousands and thousands of people sharing the experience is gratifying. I feel like this collective experience or shared experience piece that's something that's becoming a lot more of a thing nowadays. We've recently had experience where we couldn't share as many things together, and so there's that sort of immediate rebound. But even over a longer period of time, sort of regular life is becoming maybe more isolated, and so these people on purpose creating experiences that are meant to be shared is becoming more important. If I could do anything at all, there's this, like 20 years ago or something, I was looking up at one of the eclipses of the moon and watching the red of the penumbral shadow of the Earth cross over the moon before the other shadow of the moon. I'm like, holy cow, I want to be on the moon, getting a video of that sunrise, sunsets, whatever that is, color, light, shadow coming across the landscape. That's got to be crazy. It might not actually be crazy, but that's what I wanted to do. Yeah, so advice for new artists, that's always an interesting thing, and I sometimes wondering if that's a good idea. I don't know if should you be an artist? Well, maybe, but I guess the thing is that for a lot of people, you don't have a choice. Like you have to do that because you have to. So if you absolutely have to be an artist, then there's definitely part of it is get good at the art that you're doing. Obviously, that's like a major step. Get good at other things as well. Somehow you've got to involve other people in this thing that you're doing. If you're good at sales and marketing, then awesome. If you're good at like being like the art speak gallery kind of person, that's great. If you're not as social, I'm not as social, getting involved in a community is absolutely the thing that I would recommend, because then you've got people around that can do speaking on your behalf. Find some way to be involved in the rest of the world and don't just lock yourself up in the basement learning how to do your art. Definitely the thing that I'm next on my list is learning 3D modeling, design, and procedural algorithmic design. There's a lot of pieces in that area that are going to be important for my like sort of next scale up plans. So if someone was going to see my stuff in the future, from the future, I guess I'd hope that they'd think it was fun and maybe be a little surprised that people were going off in that weird of a tangent. I think that's what I hope people nowadays to think as well, so that probably makes sense.
Next, please join Daniel from La Cité Francophone as he discusses the importance of public art and how the community works together to provide, promote, and support the Flying Canoe Volant Festival.
Hi, name is Daniel Cournoyer. I'm Executive Director of La Cité Francophone, and I'm originally from St. Albert, Alberta. La Cité Francophone exists to serve the Francophone community here in Edmonton and as well as across the province. So being in the capital city, we are this French carrefour, this hub of activity and service. So La Cité Francophone houses 38 community-based organizations that serve the Francophone community, from youth to the elderly, to medical clinics, the Francophone School Board, employment offices, the Welcome Center. So we offer many services within the building with the different community organizations that call La Cité Francophone home. I think La Cité Francophone is unique because we, having cultural centers, I think very often we become these cultural silos, and La Cité Francophone in the last 12 years has really tried hard to kind of break that silo effect and providing people reasons to come and discover. So what I mean by that is very often you won't go into a cultural center unless you've been invited in. Whereas we're trying to create as many openings and opportunities for you to come and visit and discover the great Francophone community that exists here in Edmonton. The Flying Canoe Volant Winter Festival is really about celebrating our local history, everything that's magic about a long winter's night. And it really is the intersect of the communities of minority cultural communities, and in this case, the Indigenous, the Métis, and the Francophone communities that come together under the banner of Flying Canoe to celebrate with all of Edmonton the magic and the wonder of a long winter's night. I think vis-a-vis attendance, I think 11 years ago, we would have had no idea we'd be attaining 100,000 patrons. at our festival over 4 nights. So that has really been a great surprise and a wonderful part of this experiment. But I think the strength of Flying Canoe is really the interactive. What we're trying to do is provide excellent, engaging, professional programming, meaning from our artists to our musicians to our heritage performers. Everything that you see is our goal is to offer an excellent program. And I really think that's part of our success. I think the quality of the program is what brings people in. And the festival has just provided that vehicle or that opportunity to engage local artists and Francophone artists and Indigenous artists and Métis artists to come together and once again celebrate, this magical winter event. I think growth, I think we have many ideas. We have things still in the bag that we want to put out there and have people experience, but I do see growth. One of our building blocks is really trying to get to the Edmonton Ski Club and really making sure that the Flying Canoe races take place every year. We see that also in our transportation plan because eventually the Valley Line LRT will actually bookend both ends of our festival site from the Edmonton Ski Club all the way up to the Bonnie Doon Mall, or from Bonnie Doon Mall all the way down to the Edmonton Ski Club, obviously via La Cité Francophone, Rutherford School, and the magical Mill Creek Ravine. But these are all part of the things that we're working together to expand. Also diversify our audiences. So the Flying Canoe races are very unique, more of a sporting event, but really they're accessible and almost anybody 18 plus can participate in the races. And then the art, the culture, and all those pieces intersecting together is really things that we want to grow on, but we know we can get better and we know we can be stronger. I think Flying Canoe Volant really tells the Edmonton story. I mean, if we take this great French-Canadian tale, which is the Flying Canoe, La Chasse-Galerie in French, it's a tale that's really well known in Eastern Canada, but we've taken that story and really in the oral tradition adapted it to our local story and our local voyageur and our forts past and the fur trade and that voyageur spirit. So I think all those things together really brings us together. And I think that image of the canoe is that one piece of Canadiana that we can't deny and we all feel we're a part of. So, for example, we've done things like Canadian citizenship ceremonies where they've reached out to us. And I think it's because we've really captured, one, the creative, the imagination of local folks, but I think it all speaks to us somehow in different forms. La Cité Francophone is way more than an office tower or a building where organizations have their offices. We have a lot of community space, and I think that's one of our strengths. We have a 200-seat theater. We have a 240-seat hall. Within those spaces, there are all sorts of cultural activities. I mean, the theater is booked at basically 98% capacity per year, where we host many theater groups, professional theater companies, high school drama festivals, you name it, it takes place here. So I like to say, a little tongue-in-cheek, but we do have the Mercedes of cultural centers because we do have all these different installations. And one of the other things that we're also in the food and beverage game in the sense that we operate Café Bicyclette, which is one of our cultural offerings and one of our cultural outreaches. So it's once again giving people reasons to come and to discover. We have Galerie Cité, which is our public galleries. So we always have 4 to 6 shows per year that are produced in the gallery. So it's once again reaching out to different segments of our population and in trying to entice them to discover La Cité Francophone. I think the arts are our vehicle and it's our way into the greater society. I think it's through cultural engagement, cultural offerings that we entice, once again, bringing people in. I think all those things together, there's a business side of our operations, absolutely. We are a community-owned building. We own the land, we own the building. It's a project that has taken over 100 years to actually realize. And I think today we're seeing the fruits of all that labor previously. And now I have the joy and the opportunity to execute on those earlier visions and seeing how far we can push them and develop them. And I'm having a lot of fun. I think barrier-free art, I mean, as far as price point goes, is essential. I think as kids, these are sometimes the opportunities that we're introduced to different art forms. I think it just opens our horizons. It makes us believe what is possible. We discover that people actually make a living by doing that. And I think these are just opportunities for us to, once again, engage, once again, in a very creative manner. I think my advice for anybody that's considering doing a festival, it really is a passion project. And I think you've got to think about what is it we want to do. And it's not just about presenting necessarily an artist, but I always think of what are the layers behind that? What is the social fabric that's behind your festival, and who are the different communities that you're reaching in a very pragmatic and execution part of producing a festival, but also what is the message? And I'm really big believer in storytelling. And what is the story you're telling? What is it you want to communicate? Because it's not just about entertainment. If it was just that, it would be too easy. And I think what it is when you engage with an audience, when you're telling a story, when you're telling our collective story, or you're touching people on an emotional level, or just on the, if we're flying canoe voila with the beautiful lanterns, we're engaging people on an all sensory level, really. There's music, there's light, there's darkness, there's story, there's warming, there's fires, there's all these things. But behind that, there's a great story being told and a great local story being shared. And I think that's what I think makes a great festival. I think Flying Canoe has just created a great community, whether it's our lantern making workshops that we do with community leagues throughout the city of Edmonton, whether it's our engagement with the schools across the street, whether it's our engagement with local businesses and the area that all come together to come and support. I mean, we've reached a level where we have people actually reaching out to us and saying, we want to be involved. How can we be involved? And I think some of our great partners with Native Counseling Services and the huge mandate that they have, to have them on as our Indigenous partners is great, because we're working with them and their clients, and we're providing really positive experiences and engagement. And I think these are the things, whether it's me as a Francophone, I think sometimes we don't know where we fit in or where we engage. And I think it can be said similar to our Indigenous partners. I think Christine Fredericks, a local artist and creator with Dream Speakers, once said, she goes, we get invited to a lot of things, but it's different when you're included. And I think that is a big part of our value system, is that inclusion piece. We don't program our Indigenous camp, we don't program our Métis camp. We let our community partners program it and suggest a program and build the program, and we support the development of that program. We will program the Francophone elements of art because that's our community specific, but it's about creating those outreaches and going behind, because behind the scenes, there's many layers to the social fabric that's making Flying Canoe fly, and that's what makes it work. And it's really quite fascinating, and there's things happening that I would have never imagined 11 years ago when we came up with what we thought was going to be a one-off, 1 year. We're going to call it Flying Canoe this year. And after that first year, it was the whole production team that said, no, you got to keep it. It's Flying Canoe. There's something there. And I think we've just been able to continue to build on that. And the day I step away, somebody else hopefully will come in with a new energy and be able to continue that growth.
Thank you. you